Okay, so this one came out the blue and exceptionally welcome, I'd say. A new patch for Red Dead Redemption on PlayStation 4 appeared, and as it's a backwards compatible application on PlayStation 5, they've unlocked the frame rate on there. So if you've got the PS5 and you've got Red Dead Redemption, you can now play it at 60 frames per second. We've not done it personally. We've been all somewhat busy on our respective projects, but Oliver took a look and allow me to share his notes. He's basically saying, well, works exactly as you'd expect. It runs at 60 frames per second on PlayStation 5. Still native 4K, still has the toggle between the various anti-aliasing options, which is FXAA and FSR2 at native resolution. And yeah, 30 FPS and 60 FPS toggle. So if for some reason you wanted to go back to 30 FPS, then you can do so. And he says there's no changes to the visual makeup of the game. Performance is straight 60 FPS in all content. And, you know, John, you kind of expect this, right? Because, you know, fundamentally it's a PS360 game that was ported to PlayStation 4, clearly with a lot of overhead in there. And they could just effectively remove the frame rate cap.
Right. Yeah, I mean, previously I thought the theory was always kind of like there must be something with the game's like physics or some kind of thing in there that breaks just enough where they didn't want to do higher frame rates. I mean, I know it was possible through emulation on the PC, but that wasn't like Q8 or anything, right? Yeah. But it does seem like it works, which whatever, good news actually. And it's the kind of thing you might have expected initially, but still it's welcome even if it's a bit after release. Because this is the first time we've had an official version of this game running at 60 frames per second.
Right.
Yep. Thoughts, Alex?
I'm very confused why this wasn't there at release. Like, you would have made such a bigger splash in terms of like comms, social media, and excitement if it's not just like, oh, it's higher res for when all the game's art is already, you know, just the exact same. But saying it's double the frame rate, like most people these days are like, that's why I want to play an old game. I want to see it with this new enhanced fluidity. And less so, I want to see John Marston's really low res textures in 4K. So I'm really baffled why they didn't say, let's delay the game a little bit so we can at least get that PS5 version up to a full 60 and then release it, because it was already kind of like stealth dropped anyway to a certain degree. So why not just do it then a little bit later? But that's the way it is. I'm very excited to see this. I'm a little bit curious why it did take a little bit after launch to get it out. Perhaps like I discovered on the PC version that there are like tiny little things that don't interact perfectly with the 60 FPS in terms of animation update rate. So maybe that's why. And kind of like a Dark Souls game, it needed a little bit of love to actually work at some frame rate that wasn't the original.
Right, that would make sense, right? But the other thing I think is simply consumer reaction. And maybe the sales weren't exactly what they were expected to be. And so a little bit more effort was put into it. So that would kind of make sense. I mean, let's look at some supporter questions here. Perfect_organism says, my question is, who at Rockstar did you annoy so much that they decided to release a spiteful 60 FPS patch of a game you just reviewed during the busiest months of the year? Well, you know, I think in this case, Oliver just, you know, he knows the game. He took a look at it. You know where the stress points in Red Dead Redemption are, right? Because you can see them in the original versions of the game. Visit those. It's just flat 60. And, you know, it kind of makes sense because PS4 was just flat 30, I think, for the most part, if not all content. So, you know, when you're looking at what the PlayStation 5 does with backwards compatibility, it takes an exceptional workload not to be doubling the performance there. So, yeah, I mean, this one from 1040 STF. Do you think Microsoft's backwards compatibility team could be digged up from their grave to give us a 60 FPS patch for Red Dead Redemption? Well, this is the other point of contention, right? Because there is no Xbox version of the remaster because it was deemed unnecessary because backwards compatibility had already done the job. Yes. It does, basically, doesn't it? But at the same time, the native AA FSR2 implementation clearly added a lot to the game in terms of cleaning up image quality, even at 4K. I think that was my sort of surprise takeaway. And now it's 60 frames per second. So you've got image quality advantages and you've got a frame rate advantage. I don't know. John, what do you think? Do you think they should go back and do an Xbox port, or do you think it's just too much effort for too little reward?
I think it's probably too late, really, to bother at this point. And it's still a tough sell if it's like selling a new product where it's like, yeah, now there's 60 frames per second. I mean, that might be justifiable to some, but I feel like that's a tricky position to be in, right? And I'm not sure that they want to go into that space just for that reason, because there is already that good quality backwards compatible version, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. It's just now, the goalposts have been shifted.
FPS boost time, I guess. No,
I wonder if it's possible.
Yeah, exactly. I think if it were possible, they would have already done it, but maybe they'll be more inclined to look into it now.
Right. Yeah, there's always politics involved. We got this question from Spudnik. Hi DF, what do you think prompted this 60 FPS Red Dead patch? It came seemingly out of nowhere with a very small update size. This suggests the game could have easily shipped with this option. Any ideas why it wasn't? Well, you can only really speculate. The size of the patch, it's just the size of the executable, right? It's not going to require gigabytes of updates in order to unlock 60 frames per second. Why didn't it ship with it in the first place? My gut feeling is it was possibly that there was a bit of extra development oversight required, but secondly, just parity with the version that's already out there for Series X, right? And clearly they've decided to do a reverse ferret on that position. And we've got 60 FPS. I mean, this is the lead news story in DF Direct Weekly, and usually we spend a lot of time mulling over what the lead story is, and we've got a lot to say. But in this case, it is a simple frame rate unlock with a game that clearly had a lot of overhead to begin with.
Right.
And if there were tweaks and changes that needed to be made, then they were made, and here it is. I guess if you really want to play Red Dead Redemption 2, there is now one option that stands head and shoulders above the other, and it's PlayStation 5, right?
Right.
At the same time, though, Alex, still no PC versions.
Yeah, I know. It's like this is the thing.
Alex.
Like, if they did launch this on PC with a 30 FPS cap, I would have just had like a 2-word review, and you can guess what those 2 words were. But so this is good. This is good, at least for the potential future, because I don't think they're going to go back and do an Xbox Series port, because the weird goalpost moving, and it would mean they contradict themselves in terms of PR, and PR rarely ever wants to do that. Like, even if it means just like having egg on your face for like 10 years over something you said. So I think they could, though, use whatever has been put in here, especially like things like FSR 2, and give that final, PC port that we've all been looking for like 10 plus years at this point, especially since now it runs on x86 natively and runs on AMD GPUs natively again. It's like, heck, it runs on a lot of things. So, yeah.
It is bizarre that there is no PC version. It's just money that's being left on the table.
A lot of money. So many people would buy Red Dead on PC. So many people would.
It's absolutely bizarre. But I'm going back to our initial discussions on when this was leaked and what we would think, what would happen with a remaster. And the options were a complete sort of remake based on the Red Dead 2 engine and what actually we've got now, which is the original game at 4K 60. So I guess, the more realistic version has finally come to pass. The thing is, though, I mean, it's similar to when a graphics card launches at a really high price point and gets hammered in the reviews. This got hammered in the reviews because it was lacking a feature that it should have had, which was a no-brainer, right? Mm-hmm. And, that kind of negativity attached to the product, it's going to take a lot to shift, right? And this almost comes across as like a postscript, as a PS, when it should have been front and center in the marketing right from the get-go. But I guess at least it's been addressed now. It's not really too much more we can say about it. Any final words, John?
Oh, I think there's one more question there on the sheet if you look closely. So
Yeah, do you think John Marston is more of a PS Triple fan or a Wii fan?
Wii fan.
From which John has just seemingly added. Big Ultimate Energy Man.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think he's more of a PS Triple guy or a Wii guy? John Marston.
Well, he's not a PC guy, obviously.
He's definitely not a PC guy. But he's also, like if you look at that PS Triple version, he doesn't seem to be a big fan of the PS Triple either.
Well, but the thing is that the PS Triple kind of hides his flaws, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You can't even see it with all that blur.
The veil of blur and those low frames. Who knows what if he's doing something sneaky between those missing frames, right?
I know.
There's only like 20 to 25 frames being rendered per second there sometimes. So it's a little extra time for him to do something in there. So yeah, he's probably a PS Triple fan.